Joining me now is the New York Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman. He's a member of the House Judiciary Homeland Security Committee. He's a former federal prosecutor. So, Congressman, the White House says these emails prove nothing. Clearly, they raise questions. Do you think they do prove anything?
They absolutely prove something, which is that Donald Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's. And I say that because I point to the 2011 email with Ghislaine Maxwell, where Jeffrey Epstein wrote to Ghislaine about the dog that hasn't barked, Donald Trump, and that he spent hours with Virginia Giuffre in his house. And Ghislaine Maxwell says, I have been thinking about that. Now, the reason why that, to me, stands out is that these are two co-conspirators discussing something that would be detrimental to their own case. It would be admissible in court because of that. And it's in 2011, before Donald Trump was running for president, or you could claim that Jeffrey Epstein was trying to get him back. And so that just confirms what we have suspected from the 2002 50th birthday letter and the 2003 quote of Donald Trump, where he said that he knows Jeffrey Epstein likes girls on the younger side. And it further confirms that those DOJ Epstein files are going to be full of references to Donald Trump. Maybe it's benign, maybe it's his knowledge of it, maybe it's more, but there is no question that what we have seen over the last 6 months is a massive cover-up effort by Donald Trump to prevent the release of the DOJ's Epstein files, as opposed to these files from the estate.
Do you believe that that is why, Kash Patel looked like a deer in headlights soon after becoming the FBI director, when for months he'd been on podcasts before having any actual power, talking about, really getting those files have got to be released. It's all up to the FBI director. It's the people in power who are keeping it. And then as soon as he's in power, suddenly he's singing a different tune along with Dan Bongino.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, Anderson. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino spent all of 2024 harping on a conspiracy theory about the Epstein files and how they need to be released right away. Pam Bondi then pretends or says that she's releasing the Epstein files in February. And then when called out and said, no, you're not releasing anything new, she made a big hullabaloo about how Kash Patel had not given her anything and she wants it on her desk in the next day, and a memo about what happened. And the FBI agents spent thousands of hours going through it to try to redact it. And then all of a sudden, dead silence. Absolutely nothing. Crickets. And the reason is that they went through it and realized that Donald Trump is all over it. And then Bondi went and told Donald Trump that he's in it. And they have gone into a massive, massive cover-up scheme to try to keep the DOJ files from being released. Next week, it seems like we are going to vote on having those files released. And we'll see what the Senate does, whether they want to engage in Donald Trump's cover-up just to protect himself, or whether they are going to listen to the American people and the victims and their survivors who are asking for those files to be released.
Let's bring in White House reporter Elena Treen. All right, Elena, President Trump is now threatening this new investigation I just discussed involving Epstein. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is remarkable, I would argue, Pamela and Wolf. I'll note as well that I believe he's posting these from the residence. I don't see a Marine outside the West Wing, so it doesn't appear he's doing this from the Oval Office. But look, he is threatening now to ask his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, as well as the FBI, to open investigations into some of his political opponents, Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn. I want to read for you some of what the president wrote. He said, he argues that it's, now that Democrats are using what he refers to again as the Epstein hoax, he argues it's a deflection from the government shutdown. He says, I will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, JP Morgan. I know JP Morgan's interesting. He actually just hosted Jamie Dimon, the CEO, here at the White House this week. Chase and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them. Look, I mean, this is, I think it appears, of course, to be in some ways a deflection from everything we are seeing, all the political heat this administration is facing, not just from many Americans who have been fixated on this for years now, but from people in his own party who we know in a growing number of House Republicans are expected to vote on the House floor next week to support an effort to compel the Department of Justice to release all of the Epstein files. We should note, Clinton's name has come up many times in relationship to Epstein as well. His spokesperson has repeatedly said, we haven't heard from him this morning in response to these tweets, but in the past has repeatedly argued that Clinton had cut ties with Epstein before his arrest on federal charges, that he doesn't know anything about these crimes. Larry Summers similarly has had interactions with Epstein. We saw that, some of them, just this week from that trove of documents that Democrats on that House Oversight panel had released. Larry Summers' name came up, but it's interesting to see how the president now, who's really been working furiously and tirelessly to try and brush this off, to dismiss it, to argue that this is something, worked up by the Democrats, is now going to be putting effort and asking his Justice Department to open a formal investigation to look into some of these people that I think, are unquestionably some of his political opponents. So that's fascinating as well. And I will say, I do want to just quickly reference the other post he sent just shortly before that, because what I'm fascinated about in the other post is he refers to Republicans specifically. He calls them weak. He calls them soft. He argues that, really lashing out against Democrats as well. But he argues that Republicans who have, quote, fallen into their clutches are soft and foolish. He's obviously, I think, referring to the growing number of Republicans who are expected to support that vote, like I mentioned. And so this is getting very messy. And I will remind you as well, we are not actually expected to see the president today. He is traveling to Mar-a-Lago. We'll see if he ends up actually talking to reporters on the plane there, but he doesn't have any public events. We have seen him twice since these emails kind of reopened this entire Epstein saga for the White House. Both of those times, in a very uncharacteristic move for the president, did not answer questions. And so really he hasn't talked directly with reporters about this just yet. But I think it's clear from these messages this morning, Pam and Wolf, that he's clearly very frustrated about it. But now he's actually digging into it further, but trying to put the heat on Democrats and away from him.
Yeah, he's clearly, this is clearly on his mind, weighing heavily on him. All right, Elena, thank you so much. And here with us now is CNN's Arlette Saenz. Tell us more about what Speaker Johnson and House Republicans are saying about this vote and the strategy that sort of shifted here.
Well, Speaker Johnson and Republican leaders are bracing for a mass defection among the Republican conference to vote for this bill. Question is, though, if whether comments like this from President Donald Trump singling out weak Republicans might create pressure on them and stave off a tidal wave of Republicans voting to release the Epstein files. Republican lawmakers are really balancing two concerns right now. One of those is trying to adhere to some of the concerns from their constituents who want to see greater transparency on this matter, especially among the MAGA base. And then there's going against President Donald Trump. Both Speaker Johnson and the White House have really tried to delay and postpone this vote from even happening in the first place. But now that bipartisan group of lawmakers were able to successfully push forward on that discharge petition, Johnson has completely changed his strategy and said, this is inevitable. We're going to vote on this. Let's do it very soon. And for Epstein survivors, they are really hoping that this will create a lot of momentum, not just in the House, but also over in the Senate for senators to vote to release these files. Take a listen.
Courage is contagious. And I would encourage, there were Republicans in the House that were willing to stand up with us because they believed what was happening was wrong. And we need answers as American people to have trust in this government. And I would hope that senators would do some research, talk to their constituents. They are with us, and people want transparency.
Now, if this does pass in the House, a vote to release the Epstein files really meets an uncertain fate in the Senate. Senate Majority Leader John Thune in the past has said he didn't think there needed to be this type of vote. If all Democrats in the Senate were on board, they would still need 13 Republicans to join them to pass this. And one thing that proponents of this measure are trying to do over in the House, they want to get as much of a veto-proof majority as they can. That means they need 2/3 of House members to vote in favor of this to prevent to be able to override any veto if this does get to President Trump's desk and he decides to do that. So
this is why the move in Congress to pass this new law is so incredibly important, because Trump is going to try and deflect and deflect and deflect and deflect. And he's going to try and now weaponize the Epstein scandal against his political rivals. I don't know anybody. Like, I know the one person he could weaponize it against potentially, and again, this is a rumor, would be a former Democratic president, but a man who's been out of politics, God, for more than 20 years, right? Like, Bill was president last time when I was like 12, and I'm almost 40, right? Like, he's been out of politics forever. Like, that's the top Democrat you could weaponize this against. Basically, Donald, it's you. It's you. I guess it's other billionaires, including some billionaires that might not be seen as right-wing billionaires that might be on the list. But if I'm being honest, the left will say, look, man, you could take down Bill, you could take down all the other people allegedly in these files. We don't care. We want justice, right? And so that's not going to work. And so this is why getting the actual files out there and giving a megaphone for the women to speak is so important, because one, their voice matters, the truth matters, but also they need to be able to be given the microphone, because that's how you're going to counter the Trump BS. Trump controlling the documents and controlling Maxwell and all that is exactly how you get a scenario where you get the info released, but the info released is just tailor-made to protect him and or to throw the book at other people. Either people that were legitimately guilty but are being singled out because it serves Trump's interests, or people that are framed potentially. Like, would you, like, look with Trump, would you put it above Trump to frame somebody? No, I wouldn't, and neither would you. And so this is why the truth matters, so that a transparent story comes out. Even if Trump isn't that guilty, even if, we still deserve the truth, because that'll prevent Trump from weaponizing the pain that these women have felt.